Everybody. Hope you're doing well. We'll be there. Appreciate you, New Zealand clan. Magooch. Here lurking but not listening. Saving the story for the audio version. Alright, fair enough. Hope you're doing well. Nonetheless, appreciate you guys hanging out with me multiple times today. Figured instead of solving all the cubes that we solved a whole bunch of, I'm just going to keep working on this one. See how far I can get in 10 minutes. And I hope you're all doing well. Welcome, welcome. Showed 10 people waiting, but only 2 people watching. Oh, here they come. Hey, JBs, how's it going? Oh, that's what I gotta do. When I read, I have to magnify the screen so I can see my chat from farther back. Let's go, let's go. Gonna see how far we can get with this in the next 10 minutes. And no matter where we're at, we're gonna start the story in that 10 minutes. So we'll see how far I can get. But thank you all so much for hanging out with me multiple times today. It was a little bit interesting, I'd say. Not what I need. Also not what I need. What do I need? I need that? No. I need that? No. Oh, I'm not careful. This is going to be all 10 minutes of it right here. What am I missing? No. That wouldn't do. That works. Man, sorry, I've got a lot of sudden commentary. All right. Let's get back to it. Where are they? I'm trying to make my yellow side right now is what I'm trying to do. And we always give it about 10 minutes for everybody to get in, get your favorite beverage, relax a little bit. We're going to need to do that. We are going to get back into Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Gods of Mars. Okay. Okay. Bad news bears. Sorry I couldn't pop in earlier. I was caught up with some stuff. Tuning in tonight, though. I appreciate you, Nate. It's good to see you. We have put on 3 smart TVs in the house, Nana's room, Leighton's room, and the lounge room. We are ready, but also working on stuff except Nana. She's resting. Good. Nana should be resting. My heart goes out to her, and I hope you feel better soon, Katrina. And if you can hear, I hope the story helps you get some sleep. All right, well, the yellow layer should not have taken me as long as it did, but it did. Let's just make this side blue. It's good to see you, Nate. How was your day, son? And that's quite all right. We weren't on for long, a couple hours. I was just playing some games, and then Kiddio raided me. And it is his birthday today, little Kiddio game. So again, we do want to wish you the happiest of birthdays, Kiddio. Appreciate you bringing the birthday crew on over. And now I figured I would just get as far as I possibly can in 10 minutes, or 4 minutes in. Oh, ice cream. Thank you, Nickname. Appreciate you. Kiddio Raid Crew, appreciate you, Crate and Catch. Got some gifted from Crate and Catch. Appreciate you, fam. I hope your day's been going well. Very weird because Roxanne said that it was raining by her, and she also lives in Arizona. And I was like, man, it's not even dark over here. Then when I took the dog out, it was dark all around me, and it just reeked of rain, and it was great. Draws the images from your story while she's listening? No way. That is incredible. I I love that. That's amazing. That makes me happy. I like to do that too, as best I can. Been good. Got a package today with blank cards. Then I'm using those to fill in empty slots for not only my LMAS binder, but my Fusion Strike as well. Let's go. So you got your little mini proxy cards, little mini DPM in the house. I did not catch his stream today. That's very unlike me. I normally don't miss a DPM stream, but sometimes you gotta. You said you gotta regatta. All right. That just making our red side now. Sure. Sure I don't mess up any other side. That little trick here. You guys can barely even see what I'm doing. And that's all right. I don't think it's necessary, but I know it's neat to see, and I'm not going to explain this one. It's really the exact same method I was taking y'all through in the other two. But it's a lot more muchier of it. Oh, where's the last two red? Oh, I'll just pull them out. There we go. Glad you've been good, son, and can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you come up with. See, that's gonna break up everything. First off, orange should go here. Excuse me. Okay. Appreciate you guys getting through this. 8 minutes. Got a minute and a half. Probably going to finish up filling in my binder as well as eat dinner on that note as well. Happy Memorial Day to you as well, son. To you as well. I hope you had an okay day. I know you're out of school now, so if I did that. Okay, what if I did that? Oh, easier now. One left. Okay, that should be all of my centers completed. Hey, within 10 minutes. Probably going to stop there and I'll work on my sides later so that we can get into the story for the night. Appreciate you guys letting me do that. And for the record, that's my personal best for getting just the centers solved. That was the quickest I've ever done that. Not count, I guess we can't count it because the white was already done. Oh well, only 27% through the whole book, but we're in book 2 right now of the John Carter series. Appreciate you all hanging out with me before this stream, as well as coming in for the read. Got 5 of my ghosty readers in here. Love every single one of you. And we're going to get into chapter 16, which is Under Arrest. And what had happened was John Carter met his son. They escaped from a place you shouldn't escape from, and that's punishable if you do, because nobody's ever done it. But that place isn't so great, and they've been really just fibbing the whole time, and it's really something else. So they're coming back to tell the truth, and now we're under arrest. I hope you all enjoy, and thanks for being here. Chapter 16, Under Arrest. As Carthoris, Zodar, Tarstarchus, and I stood gazing at the magnificent vessel which meant so much to all of us, we saw a second and then a third top the summit of the hills and glide gracefully after their sister. Now a score of one-man air scouts were launching from the upper decks of the nearer vessel, and in a moment more were speeding in along swift dives to the ground above us. In another instant, we were surrounded by armed soldiers, and an officer had stepped forward to address us, when his eyes fell upon Carthoris. With an exclamation of surprised pleasure, he sprang forward and, placing his hands upon the boy's shoulder, called him by name. "Carthoris, my prince!" he cried. "Car! Harvatas greets the son of Dejah Thoris, princess of Helium, and of her husband John Carter. Where have you been, O my prince? All Helium has been plunged in sorrow. Terrible have been the calamities that have befallen your great-grandsire's mighty nation since the fatal day that we saw you leave our midst. Grieve not, my good Horvastus, cried Carthoris, since I bring not back myself alone to cheer my mother's heart, and the heart of my beloved people, but also one whom all Barsoom loved best, her greatest warrior and her savior, John Carter, Prince of Helium." Horvastus turned in the direction indicated by Carthoris, and his eyes fell upon me. He was like to have collapsed from sheer surprise. "John Carter!" he exclaimed, and then a sudden troubled look came into his eyes. "My prince," he stated, "where hast thou—" And then he stopped. But I knew the question that his lips dared not frame. The loyal fellow would not be the one to force from mine a confession of the terrible truth that I had returned from the bosom of Ys and the river of mystery, back from the shore of the lost sea of Chorus and the valley Dor. "Ah, my prince," he continued, as though no thought had interrupted his greeting, "that you are back is sufficient, and let Horvastus' sword have a high honor of being first at thy feet." With these words, the noble fellow unbuckled his scabbard and flung his sword upon the ground before me. Could you know the customs and the character of red Martians, you would have appreciated the depth of meaning that the simple act conveyed to me, and to all about us who witnessed it. The thing was equivalent to saying, "My sword, my body, my life, my soul are yours to do with as you wish. Until death and after death I look to you alone for authority for my every act. Be you right or wrong, your word shall be my only truth. Whoso raises his hand against you must answer to my sword." It is the oath of fealty that men occasionally pay to a Jeddak whose high character and chivalrous acts have inspired the enthusiastic love of his followers. Never had I known this high tribute paid to a lesser mortal. There was but one response possible. I stooped and lifted the sword from the ground, raised the hilt to my lips, and then, stepping to Horvastus, I buckled the weapon upon him with my own hands. "Horvastus," I said, placing my hand upon his shoulder, "you know best the promptings of your own heart. That I shall need your sword I have little doubt, but accept from John Carter upon the sacred honor of assurance that he will never call upon you to draw this sword other than in the cause of truth, justice, and righteousness." "That I knew, my prince," he replied, "ere ever I threw my beloved blade at thy feet." As we spoke, other flyers came and went between the ground and the battleship, and presently the larger boat was launched. From above, one capable of carrying a dozen persons, perhaps, and dropped lightly near us. As she touched, an officer sprang from her deck to the ground, and advancing to Horvastus, saluted. "Kantos Khan desires that this party, whom we have rescued and brought immediately to the deck of the Zavaran," he said. As we approached the little craft, I looked about for the members of my party and for the first time noticed that Thuvia was not among them. Questioning elicited the fact that none had seen her since Carthoris had sent her thoat galloping madly towards the hills, in the hope of carrying her out of harm's way. Immediately, Horvastus dispatched a dozen air scouts in as many directions in search for her. It could not be possible that she had gone far since we had last seen her. We others stepped to the deck of the craft and had to be sent to fetch us, and a moment later we were upon the Zaravan. The Zavarian. Zavarian. All right. The first man to greet me was Kantos Khan himself, my old friend, had won to the highest place of his navy in Helium. But he was still to me the same brave comrade who had shared with me the provisions of the Warhoon dungeon, the terrible atrocities of the great games, and later the dangers of our search for Deja Thoris within the hostile city of Zodanga. Then I had been an unknown wanderer upon this strange planet, and he a simple padwar in the navy of Helium. Today he commanded all Helium's great terrors of the sky, and I was a prince of the house of Tardos Mors, Jeddak of Helium. He did not ask me where I had been. Like Horvastus, he too dreaded the truth and would not be the one to wrest a statement from me. That it must come some time he well knew, but until it came he seemed satisfied to but know that I was with him once more. He greeted Carthoris and Tarstarchus with the keenest delight, but he asked neither where he had been. He could scarcely keep his hands off the boy. "You do not know John Carter?" he said to me. "How we of Helium love this son of yours! It is as though all the great love we bore his noble father and his poor mother we have centered in him. When it became known that he was lost, 10,000,000 people wept." "What mean you, Kantos Khan?" I whispered, "by his poor mother?" For the words had seemed to carry a sinister meaning which I could not fathom. He drew me to one side. "For a year," he said, "ever since Carthoris disappeared, Deja Thoris has grieved and mourned for her lost boy. The blow of years ago, when you did not return from the atmosphere plant, was lessened to some extent by the duties of motherhood, for your son broke his white shell that very night. That she suffered terribly then, all Helium knew, for did not all Helium suffer with her the loss of her lord? But with the boy gone, there was nothing left, and after expedition upon expedition returned with the same hopeless tale of no clue as to his whereabouts. Our beloved princess drooped lower and lower, until all who saw her felt that it could be but a matter of days ere she went to join her loved ones within the precincts of the valley door. As a last resort, Mors Kajak, her father, and Tardos Mors, her grandfather, took command of two mighty expeditions, and a month ago sailed away to explore every inch of ground in the northern hemisphere of Barsoom. For 2 weeks no word has come back from them, but rumors were rife that they had met with terrible disaster and that all were dead. About this time Zat Aras renewed his importunities for her hand in marriage. He has been forever after her since you disappeared. She hated him and feared him. But with both her father and grandfather gone, Zat Aras was very powerful, for he was still Jed of Zodanga, to which position you will remember Taros Mors appointed him after you refused the honor. He had a secret audience with her 6 days ago. What took place, none knows. But the next day Deja Thoris had disappeared, and with her had gone a dozen of her household guard and body servants, including Sola, the green woman, Tarstarchus's daughter, you recall. No word left. No word left they of their intentions. But it is always thus that with those who go upon the voluntary pilgrimage, from which none return, we cannot think aught that some Deja Thoris too sought the icy bosom of Ys, and that her devoted servants have chosen to accompany her. Zat Aras was at Helium when she disappeared. He commands this fleet, which has been searching for her since. No trace of her we have found, and I fear that it to be the futile quest. While we talked, Horvastus flyers were returning to the Zavarian. Not one, however, had discovered a trace of Thuvia. I was much depressed over the news of Deja Thoris' disappearance, and now there was added the further burden of apprehension concerning the fate of this girl, whom I believed to be the daughter of some proud Barsoomian house, and it had been my intention to make every effort to return her to her people. I was about to ask Kantos Khan to prosecute Prosecute a further search for her when a flyer came from the flagship of the fleet arrived at the Zavarian, with the officer bearing the message to Kantos Khan from Eris. My friend read the dispatch and then turned to me. Zat Eris commands me to bring our prisoner before him. There is naught else to do. He is supreme in Helium. Yet it would be far more in keeping with the chivalry and good taste were he to come hither and greet the savior of Barsoom with the honors that Eris due. You know full well, my friend, I said, smiling, that Zat Aras has good cause to hate me. Nothing would please him better than to humiliate me and then to kill me. Now that he has so excellent an excuse, let us go, and see if he has the courage to take advantage of it. Summoning Carthoris, Tarstarchus, and Zodar, we entered the small flyer with Kantos Khan and Zat Aris, officer, and in a moment we were stepping onto the deck of Zat Aris's flagship. As we approached the jet of Zodanga, no sign of greeting or recognition crossed his face. Not even to Carthoris did he vouch safely a friendly word. His attitude was cold, haughty, and uncompromising. Kor, Zat Aris, I said in greeting, but he did not respond. Why were these prisoners not disarmed? He asked to Kantos Khan. They are not prisoners, Zat Aris, replied the officer. 2 of them are of Helium's noblest families, Tarstarchus, Jeddak of Thark, and Tardos Mor's best beloved ally. The other is a friend and companion of the Prince of Helium, and is enough for me to know. That is enough for me to know. It is not enough for me, however, retorted Zat Aras. More must I hear from those who have taken the pilgrimage than their names. Where have you been, John Carter? I have just come from the Valley Dorn, the land of the firstborn, Zat Aras, I replied. Aha! He exclaimed, in evident pleasure. You do not deny it, then? You have returned from the bosom of Ys? I have come back from a land of false hope, from a valley of torture and death. With my companions I have escaped from the hideous clutches of lying fiends. I have come back to the Barsoom that have saved from the painless death to again save her, but this time from the death in most frightful form. Cease, blasphemer, cried Zat Aras. Hope not to save thy cowardly carcass in inventing horrid lies too. But he got no further. One does not call John Carter coward and liar thus lightly, and Zat Aras should have known it. Before a hand could be raised to stop me, I was at his side, and one hand grasped his throat. Come I from heaven or hell, Zat Aras, you will find me still the same John Carter that I have always been, nor did ever man call me such names and live without apologizing. And with that I commenced to bend him back across my knee and tighten my grip on his throat. Seize him! Cried Zat Aras. A dozen officers sprang forward to assist him. Kantos Khan came close and whispered to me, Desist, I beg of you. It will but involve us all, for I cannot see these men lie hands upon you without aiding you. My officers and men will join me, and we shall have a mutiny that may lead to a revolution for the sake of Tardos Mors and Helium Desist. At his words, I released Zat Aras, and turning my back upon him, walked toward the ship's rail. Come, Kantos Khan, I said. The Prince of Helium would return to the Zavarian. None interfered. Zat Aras stood white and trembling amidst his officers. Some there were who looked upon him with scorn and drew toward me, while one, a man long in service and confidence of Tardos Mors, spoke to me in a low tone as I passed him. You may count my medal among your fighting men, John Carter, he said. I thanked him and passed on. In silence we embarked, and shortly after, stepped once more upon the deck of the Zavarian. 15 minutes later, we received orders from the flagship to proceed towards Helium. Our journey thither was uneventful. Carthoris and I were wrapped in the gloomiest of thoughts. Kantos Khan was somber in contemplation of the further calamity that might fall upon Helium should Zat Aras attempt to follow the age-old precedent that allotted a terrible death to fugitives from the Valley Door. Tarstarchus grieved for the loss of his daughter. Zodar alone was carefree, a fugitive and outlaw. He could be no worse off in Helium than elsewhere. Let us hope that we may at least go out with good red blood upon our blades, he said. It was a simple wish, and one most likely to be gratified. Among the officers of the Zavarian, I thought I could discern decision to factions ere we had reached Helium. There were those who gathered about Carthoris and myself whenever the opportunity presented, while about an equal number held aloof from us. They offered us only the most courteous treatment, but were evidently bound by their superstitions, belief in the doctrine of door and east and chorus. I could not blame them, for I knew how strong a hold a creed, however ridiculous it may be, may gain upon an otherwise intelligent people. By returning from Dor, we had committed a sacrilege. By recounting our adventures there and stating the facts as they existed, we had outraged the religion of their fathers. We were blasphemers, lying heretics. Even those who still clung to us from personal love and loyalty, I think, did so in the face of the fact that, at heart, they questioned our veracity. It is very hard to accept a new religion, for an old, no matter how alluring the promises of the new may be, but to reject the old as the tissue of falsehoods without being offered anything in its stead is indeed a most difficult thing to ask of any people. Kantos Khan would not talk of our experiences among the Therans and the Firstborn. It is enough, he said, that I jeopardize my life here and hereafter by countenancing all at you at all. Do not ask me to add still further to my sins by listening to what I have already been taught was the rankest heresy. I knew that sooner or later the time must come when our friends and enemies would be forced to declare themselves openly. When we reached Helium, there must be an accounting, and if Tardos Mors had not returned, I fear that the enmity of Zat Aras might weigh heavily against us, for he represented the government of Helium. To take sides against him were equivalent to treason. The majority of troops would doubtless follow the lead of their officers, and I knew many of the highest and most powerful men of both land and air force would cleave to John Carter in the face of God, man, or devil. On the other hand, the majority of the populace unquestionably would demand that we pay a penalty of our sacrilege. The outlook seemed dark from whatever angle I viewed it, but my mind was so torn with anguish at the thought of Deja Thoris that I realize now that I gave terrible question of Helium's plight, but scant attention at the time. There was always before me, day and night, a horrible nightmare of the frightful scenes from which I knew my princess might even be passing, the horrid plant men, the ferocious white apes. At times I would cover my face with my hands in a vain effort to shut out the fearful thing from my mind. It was in the forenoon that we arrived above the mile-high Scarlet Tower which marks the greater Helium from her twin city. As we descended in great circles toward the Navy docks, a mighty multitude could be seen surging in the streets beneath. Helium had been notified by radio aerogram of our approach. From the deck of the Zavarian, we four, Carthoris, Tarstarchus, Zordar, and I, were transferred to a lesser flyer to be transported to the quarters within the Temple of Reward. It is here that Martian justice is meted to benefactor or malefactor. Here the hero is decorated, here the felon is condemned. We were taken to the temple from the landing stage upon the roof so that we did not pass among the people at all, as is customary. Always before I had seen the prisoner of note or returned wanderers of eminence paraded from the gates of Jedex to the Temple of Reward up to the broad avenue of ancestors through dense crowds of jeering or cheering citizens. I knew that Zat Aras dared not trust the people nearer to us, for he feared that their love for Carthoris and myself might break into a demonstration which would wipe out their superstitious horrors of crime we were to be charged with. What his plans were, I could only guess, but that they were sinister was evident by the fact that only his most trusted servitors accompanied him upon the flyer to the Temple of Reward. We were lodged in a room upon the south side of the temple, overlooking the avenue of ancestors, down which we could see the full length of the gate to the Jedex 5 miles away. The people in the temple plaza and the streets for a distance of a full mile were standing as close packed as it were possible for them to get. They were very orderly. They were neither scoffs nor plaudits, but when they saw us at the window above them, there were many who buried their faces in their arms and wept. Late in the afternoon, a messenger arrived from Zat Aras to inform us that we would be tried by an impartial body of nobles in the great hall of the temple on the first Zod in the following day, or at about 8:40 a.m. Earth time. Now a Zod, wherever Captain Carter has used Martian measurements of time, distance, weight, and the like, I have translated them into nearly their equivalent in earthly values as possible. His notes contain many Martian tables and a great volume of scientific data. But since the International Astronomic Society is at present engaged in classifying, investigating, and verifying this vast fund of remarkable and valuable information, I have felt that it will add nothing to the interest of Captain Carter's story or to the sum total of human knowledge to maintain a strict adherence to the original manuscript in these manners. While it may readily confuse the reader and detract from the interest of history, for those who may be interested, however, I will explain that the Martian day is a trifle over 24 hours 37 minutes duration Earth time. This the Martians divide to 10 equal parts, commencing the day at about 6 a.m. Earth time. The zodes are divided into 50 shorter periods, each of which turn is composed of 200 brief periods of time, about equivalent to an earthly second. The Barsoomian table of time, as here given, but the part of the full table appearing in the Captain Carter's notes. And it just goes through that. 10 zods, 1 revolution of Mars upon its axis. So 10 zodes is 1 revolution, or 1 day. Cool. That was the end of the chapter. Hey, what's up, Misfits? How are you, brother? It's been a minute. Hope you've been doing well. Yuna, I hope you're doing well. Appreciate you coming in. Yeah, first one was a toughie. Not to sound ignorant, but lots of big words. Good to see you, Lolo. Uh-oh. I don't think the trial goes well. Chapter 17 is the death sentence. But I hope you're all doing well tonight. Appreciate you being here. Just past that half-hour mark, 1 chapter down. Yeah, we're right on track. These chapters are long, too. So as to not break the atmosphere, I probably won't address the chat while I am reading, so I do apologize if I do miss you. Life's been life in a bit, but I'm making it blessed nonetheless. Let's go. As always, fam, if you ever need anything, we are always here for you. It is really good to see you. But appreciate everybody. It's getting intense real quick. They made it back to helium. Someone's not happy. This Eris guy, I really don't like him. Let's see what happens. In chapter 17, the death sentence. A few moments before the appointed time on the following morning, a strong guard of Zat Aris's officers appeared at our quarters to conduct us to the great hall of the temple. In twos, we entered the chamber and marched down to the broad aisle of Hope, as it's called, to the platform at the center of the hall. Before and behind us marched armed guards, while 3 solid ranks of Zodangian soldiery lined either side of the aisle from the entrance to the rostrum. As we reached the raised enclosure, I saw our judges. As is the custom upon Barsoom, there were 31, supposedly selected by a lot of men of all noble classes, for nobles were on trial. But, to my amazement, I saw no single friendly face among them. Practically all were Zodangians, and it was I to whom Zodanga owed their defeat at the hands of the Green Hordes, and her subsequent vassalage of helium. There could be little justice here for John Carter or his son, or for the great Thark who had commanded the savage tribesmen who overran Zodangian broad avenues, looting, burning, and murdering. About us, the vast circular coliseum was packed to its full capacity. All classes were represented, all ages, and both sexes. As we entered the hall, the hum of the subdued conversation ceased until, as we halted upon the platform, or throne of the righteousness, the silence of death enveloped the 10,000 spectators. The judges were seated in a great circle about the periphery of the circular platform. We were assigned seats with our backs towards the small platform in the exact center of the larger one. This placed us facing the judges and the audience. Upon the smaller platform, each would take its place while his case was being heard. Zadaris himself sat in the golden chair of the preceding magistrate. As we were seated and our guards retired to the foot of the stairway leading to the platform, he arose and called my name. John Carter, he cried, take your place upon the pedestal of truth, to be judged impartially according to your acts, and here to know the reward you have earned thereby. Then, turning to and fro toward the audience, he narrated the acts upon the value of which my reward was to be determined. Know you, O judges and people of Helium, he said, that John Carter, one time Prince of Helium, has returned by his own statement from the valley door, and even from the temple of Isis itself, that, in the presence of many men of Helium, he has blasphemed against the sacred East, and against the valley door, and the lost sea of Chorus, and the holy Therns themselves, and even against Isis, goddess of death, and of life eternal. And know you further by witness of thine own eyes, that see him here now upon the pedestal of truth, that he has indeed returned from these sacred precincts in the face of our ancient customs, and in violation of the sanctity of our ancient religion. He who be once dead may not live again. He who attempts it must be made dead forever. Judges, your duty lies plain before you. Here can be no testimony in contravention of truth. What reward shall be meted to John Carter in accordance with the acts he has committed? Death, shouted one of the judges. And then a man sprang to his feet in the audience and, raising his hands on high, cried, Justice! 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 It was Kantos Khan. And as all eyes turned towards him, he leapt past the Odangian soldiery and sprang upon the platform. What manner of justice is this? He cried to Zat Ares. The defendant has not been heard, nor has he had an opportunity to call others on his behalf. In the name of the people of Helium, I demand fair and impartial treatment for the Prince of Helium. A great cry rose from the audience then, Justice! 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 And Zat Ares dared not deny them. Speak then, he snarled, turning to me, but blasphemy not against the things that are sacred upon Barsoom. Men of Helium, I cried, turning to the spectators and speaking over the heads of my judges. How can John Carter expect justice from the men of Zodanga? He cannot, nor does he ask it. It is to the men of Helium that he states his case, nor does he appeal for mercy to any. It is not in his own cause that he speaks now, it is in thine. In the cause of your wives and daughters, and of wives and daughters yet unborn. It is to save them from the unthinkably atrocious indignities that I have seen heaped upon the fair woman of Barsoom in a place men call the Temple of Isis. It is to save them from the sucking embrace of the plant men, from the fangs of the great white apes of Dor, from the cruel lust of the holy Therns, from all that the cold, dead East carries them to from homes of love and life and happiness. Sits there no man here who does not know the history of John Carter, how he came among you from another world and rose from a prisoner among the green men through torture and persecution to a place high among the highest of Barsoom. Nor ever did you know John Carter to lie on his own behalf, or to say aught that might harm people of Barsoom, or to speak lightly of the strange religion which he respected without understanding. There be no man here or elsewhere upon Barsoom today who does not owe his life directly to a single act of mine, in which I sacrificed myself and the happiness of my princess that you might live. And so, men of Helium, I think that I have the right to demand that I be heard, that I be believed, and that you let me serve you and save you from a false hereafter of Dor and Isis, as I saved you from the real death that other day. It is to you of Helium that I speak now. When I am done, let the men of Zodanga have their will with me. Zat Ares has taken my sword from me, so the men of Zodanga will no longer fear me. Will you listen? Speak, John Carter, Prince of Helium, cried a great noble from the audience, and the multitude echoed his permission until the building rocked with the noise of their demonstration. Zat Ares knew better than to interfere with such a sentiment as was expressed that day in the Temple of Reward, and so for 2 hours I talked with the people of Helium. But when I had finished, Zat Ares arose and, turning to the judges, said in a low tone, My nobles, you have heard John Carter's plea. Every opportunity has been given him to prove his innocence if he not be guilty. But instead he has but utilized the time to further blasphemy. What, gentlemen, is your verdict? Death to the blasphemer, cried one, springing to his feet, and in an instant The entire 31 judges were on their feet with upraised swords in token of the unanimity. Unanimous. They were unanimous of their verdict. If the people did not hear Zadara's charge, they certainly did hear the verdict of the tribunal. A sullen murmur rose louder and louder about the packed Colosseum, and then Kantos Khan, who had not left the platform since he had first taken his place near me, raised his hand for silence. When he could be heard, he spoke to the people in a cool and level voice. You have heard the fate that the men of Zodanga would met to Helium's noblest hero. It may be the duty of the men of Helium to accept the verdict as final. Let each man act according to his own heart. Here is the answer of Kantos Khan, head of the Navy of Helium, to Zat Ares and his judges. And with that, he unbuckled his scabbard and threw his sword at my feet. In an instant, soldiers and citizens, officers and nobles were crowding past the soldiers of Zodanga and forcing their way to the throne of righteousness. 100 men surged upon the platform, and 100 blades rattled and clanked to the floor at my feet. Zat Ares and his officers were furious, but they were helpless. One by one, I raised the swords to my lips and buckled them again upon their owner. Come, said Kantos Khan. We will escort John Carter and his party to his own palace. And they formed about us and started toward the stairs leading to the Isle of Hope. Stop, cried Zat Ares. Soldiers of Helium, let no prisoner leave the throne of righteousness. The soldiery from Zodanga were the only organized body of Heliumetic troops within the temple, so Zat Ares was confident that his orders would be obeyed. But I do not think he looked for the opposition that was raised the moment the soldiers advanced towards the throne. From every quarter of the Colosseum, swords flashed and men rushed threateningly upon the Zodangans. Someone raised a cry, Tardos More is dead! 1,000 years to John Carter, Jeddak of Helium! As I heard that and saw the ugly attitude of the men of Helium toward the soldiers of Zat Ares, I knew that only a miracle could avert a clash that would end in civil war. Hold! I cried, leaping to the pedestal of truth once more. Let no man move till I'm done. A single sword thrust here today may plunge Helium into a bitter and bloody war, the results of which none can foresee. It will turn brother against brother and father against son. No man's life is worth that sacrifice. Rather would I submit to the biased judgment of Zat Ares than to be the cause of civil strife of Helium. Let us each give and point to the other, and let this entire matter rest until Tardos Mors returns, or Mors Kajak, his son. If neither be back at the end of the year, a second trial may be held. The thing has a precedent. And then, turning to Zat Ares, I said in a low voice, unless you be the bigger fool, and then I take you to be, you will grasp the chance I am offering you here, ere it is too late. Once the multitude of swords below is drawn against your soldiery, no man upon Barsoom, not even Tardos Mors himself, can avert the consequences. What say you? Speak quickly. The Jed of Zodang and Helium raised his voice to the angry sea beneath us. Stay your hands, Med of Helium, he shouted, his voice trembling with rage. The sentence of the court is passed, but the day of retribution has not been set. I, Zat Ares, Jed of Zodanga, appreciating the royal connections of the prisoner and his past services to Helium and Barsoom, grant a respite of 1 year, or until the return of Mors Kajak or Tardos Mors of Helium. Disperse quietly to your houses. Go. No one moved. Instead, they stood in tense silence with their eyes fastened upon me as though waiting for me to signal an attack. Clear the temple, commanded Zat Ares in a low tone to one of his officers. Fearing the result of an attempt to carry out his order by force, I stepped to the edge of the platform and, pointing toward the main entrance, bid them pass out. As one man, they turned at my request and fled, silent and threatening, past the soldiery of Zat Ares, Jed of Zodanga, who stood scowling in impotent rage. Kantos Khan, with the others who had sworn allegiance to me, still stood upon the throne of righteousness with me. Come, said Kantos Khan to me. We will escort you to your palace, my prince. Come, Carthoris and Zodar. Come, Tars Tarkas. And with a haughty sneer for Zot Aras upon his handsome lips, he turned and strode to the throne steps and up the Isle of Hope. We four, and the 100 loyal ones, followed behind him. Nor was a hand raised to stay us, though glowering eyes followed our triumphal march through the temple. In the avenues we found a press of people, but they opened a pathway for us, and many were the swords that were flung at my feet as I passed through the city of Helium toward my palace upon the outskirts. Here my old slaves fell upon their knees and kissed my hands as I greeted them. They cared not where I had been. It was enough that I had returned to them. "Ah, master," cried one, "if our divine princess were but here, this would be a day indeed." Tears came to my eyes, so that I was forced to turn away, that I might hide my emotions. Carthoris wept openly as the slaves pressed about him with expressions of affection and words of sorrow for our common loss. It was now that Tars Tarkas, for the first time, learned that his daughter Sola had accompanied Dejah Thoris upon the last long pilgrimage. I had not had the heart to tell him what Kantos Khan had told me. With the stoicism of the Green Martian, he showed no sign of suffering, yet I knew that his grief was as poignant as my own. In marked contrast to his kind, he had well developed from kindlier human characteristics of love and friendship, charity. It was a sad and somber party that sat at the feast of welcome in the great dining hall of the palace of the Prince of Helium that day. We were over 100 strong, not counting the members of my little court, for Dejah Thoris and I had maintained a household consistent with our royal rank. The board, according to Red Martian custom, was triangular, for there was 3 in our family. Carthoris and I presided at the center of our sides of the table. Midway of the third side, Dejah Thoris' high-backed carven wooden chair stood vacant, except for her gorgeous wedding trappings and jewels which were draped upon it. Behind stood a slave, as in the days when his mistress had occupied her place at the board, ready to do her bidding. It was the way upon Barsoom, so I endured the anguish of it, though I wrung my heart to see that silent chair. Where should have been my laughing and vivacious princess, keeping the great hall ringing with her merry gaiety? At my right sat Kantos Khan, while to the right of Dejah Thoris' empty place, Tars Tarkas sat in a huge chair before a raised section of the board, which many years ago I had constructed to meet the requirements of this mighty bulk. The place of honor at the Martian Horde is always at the hostess's right, and this place was ever reserved by Dejah Thoris for the great Thark upon the occasion that he was in Helium. Horsvasta sat in the seat of honor upon Cathoris' side of the table. There was little general conversation. It was a quiet and saddened party. The loss of Dejah Thoris was still fresh in the minds of all, and to this was added fear for the safety of Tardos Mors and Mors Kajak, as well as doubt and uncertainty as to the fate of Helium, should it prove true that she was permanently deprived of her great Jeddak. Suddenly our attention was attracted by the sound of distant shouting, as of many people raising their voices at once, or whether in angry or rejoicing we could not tell. Nearer and nearer came the tumult. A slave rushed into the dining hall to cry that a great concourse of people was swarming through the palace gates. A second burst upon the heels of the first, alternately laughing and shrieking like a madman. "Dejah Thoris is found! A message from Dejah Thoris!" I waited to hear no more. A great window of the dining hall overlooked the avenue leading to the main gates. They were upon the opposite side of the hall from me, with the table intervening. I did not waste time encircling the great board. With a single leap I cleared the table and diners and sprang upon the balcony. Beyond, 30 feet below, lay a scarlet sword of the lawn, and beyond were many people, crowding about a great thoat which bore a rider headed toward the palace. I vaulted to the ground below and ran swiftly toward the advancing party. As I came near to them, I saw that the figure on the thoat was Sola. "Where's the Princess of Helium?" I cried. The green girl slid from her mighty mount and ran towards me. "Oh, my prince! My prince!" she cried. "She is gone forever. Even now she may be a captive upon a lesser moon. The black pirates of Barsoom have stolen her." Great. Hey, Lisa. Stop by to say hey and see what Kev was reading. Hey, Kev, Lisa from Rocket Scott. How are you doing? Lisa Kirkland. It is good to see you. I enjoyed listening. Excellent. Reminds me of Will the Transformers prevail? Will Optimus Prime return? Find out next time on Transformers. Optimus Prime returns. Autobots transform and roll out. It's good to see you, Lisa. I hope you're doing well. I hope your health is good. We are reading The Gods of Mars as part of the John Carter Barsoom series. That is what we are currently reading. Can't believe that happened just now. The Black Pirates are very vicious people. I have to believe that Deja Thoris will be okay. But they just left. Like they just got away from them. Hey, Johnny Knight, how's it going, man? It is good to see you, brother. That was cool. I like when the people stand up with their hero. And they keep saying, that's not where I've been. It's just enough to that you're back. Just chilling. Excellent. Excellent. Seems like a very chill night. I was off work today, so I got to do the double stream. I streamed for a couple hours before I came over and sat down to read. So yeah, it's just been a great night. I was able to give some art away. Was able to get some subs for peeps. So yeah, been a good day all around. And now this story, man, I have no idea where it's going, but I have a feeling it's gonna get good. I think our last read of this book is going to be super long because I think there's 2 chapters that I'm not counting into the equation, and they'll have to be read somewhere. That one was pretty short, though. All right. Now we get to hear all about Sola's story, how it happened. In chapter 18, Sola's story. Once within the palace, I drew Sola to the dining hall, and when she had greeted her father after the formal manner of green men, she told the story of the pilgrimage and capture of Deja Thoris. 7 days ago, after her audience with Zat Aras, Deja Thoris attempted to slip from the palace in the dead of night. Although I had not heard the outcome of that interview with Zat Aras, I knew that something had occurred then to cause her the keenest mental agony, and when I discovered her creeping from the palace, I did not need to be told her destination. Hastily arousing a dozen of her most faithful guards, I explained my fears to them, and as one, they enlisted with me to follow our beloved princess in her wanderings, even to the sacred East and the Valley Door. We came upon her but a short distance from the palace. With her was faithful Wula the hound, but none other. When we overtook her, she feigned anger and ordered us back to the palace, but for once we disobeyed her. And when she found that we would not let her go upon the last long pilgrimage alone, she wept and embraced us, and together we went out into the night toward the south. The following day we came upon a herd of small thoats, and thereafter we were mounted and made good time. We traveled very fast and very far due south until the morning of the 5th day. We sighted a great fleet of battleships sailing north. They saw us before we could seek shelter, and soon we were surrounded by a horde of black men. The princesses fought hard, nobly to the end, but they were soon overcome and slain. Only Deja Thoris and I were spared. When she realized that she was in the clutches of the black pirates, she attempted to take her own life, but one of the blacks tore her dagger from her, and then they bound us both so that we could not use our hands. The fleet continued north after capturing us. There were about 20 large battleships in all, beside a number of small swift cruisers. That evening, one of the smaller cruisers that had been far in advance of the fleet returned with a prisoner, a young red woman whom they had picked up in the range of hills under the very nosy, they said, a fleet of 3 red Martian battleships. Sorry, under their very noses. I don't know where that came from. From scraps of conversation which we overheard, it was evident that the black pirates were searching for a party of fugitives that had escaped from several days prior. That they considered the capture of the young woman important was evident from the long and earnest interview the commander of the fleet held with her when she was brought to him. Later, she was bound and placed in the compartment with Deja Thoris and myself. The new captive was a very beautiful girl. She told Dejah that many years ago she had taken the voluntary pilgrimage from the court of her father, the Jeddak of Tarth. She was Thuvia, the princess of Tharth, and then she asked Dejah who she might be, and when she heard, she fell upon her knees and kissed Dejah fettered hands, and told her that that very morning she had been with John Carter, Prince of Helium, and Carthoris, her son. Dejah could not believe her at first, but finally, when the girl had narrated all the strange adventures that had befallen her since she had met John Carter, and told her of the things John Carter and Carthoris and Zodar had narrated of their adventures in the land of the firstborn, Dejah knew that it could be none other than the Prince of Helium. For who, she said, upon all Barsoom other than John Carter, could have done the deed you telleth? And when Thuvia told Dejah of her love for John Carter, and his loyalty and devotion to the princess of his choice, Dejah broke down and wept, cursing Zot Aris and the cruel fate that had driven her from Helium, but a few brief days before the return of her beloved lord. I do not blame you for loving him, Thuvia, she said, and that your affection for him is pure and sincere I can well believe from the candor of your avowal of it to me. The fleet continued north, nearly to Helium, but last night they evidently realized that John Carter had indeed escaped them, and so they turned toward the south once more. Shortly thereafter, a guard entered our compartment and dragged me to the deck. There is no place in the land of the firstborn for a green one, he said, and with that he gave me a terrific shove that carried me toppling from the deck of the battleship. Evidently, this seemed to him the easiest way of ridding the vessel of my presence and killing me at the same time. But a kind fate intervened, and by a miracle I escaped with but slight bruises. The ship was moving slowly at the time, and as I lunged overboard into the darkness beneath, I shuddered at the awful plunge I thought awaited me. For all day the fleet had sailed thousands of feet above the ground, but to my utter surprise I struck upon a soft mass of vegetation not 20 feet from the deck of the ship. In fact, the keel of the vessel must have been grazing the surface of the ground at the time. I lay all night where I had fallen, and the next morning brought an explanation of the fortunate coincidence that had saved me from my terrible death. As the sun rose, I saw a vast panorama of the sea bottom and distant hills lying far below me. I was upon the highest peak of the lofty range. The fleet in the darkness of the preceding night had barely grazed the crest of the hills, and in the brief span that they hovered close to the surface of the blackguard had pitched me, as he supposed, to my death. A few miles west of me was a great waterway. When I reached it, I found to my delight that it belonged to Helium. Here Thoth was procured for me. The rest you know. For many minutes none spoke. Dejah in the clutches of the firstborn. I shuddered at the thought, but of a sudden an old fire of unconquerable self-confidence surged through me. I sprang to my feet, and with back-thrown shoulders and upraised swords took a solemn vow to rescue, reach, and revenge my princess. 100 swords leaped from 100 scabbards, and 100 fighting men sprang to the tabletop and pledged me their lives and fortunes to the expedition. Already my plans were formulated. I thanked each loyal friend, and leaving Carthoris to entertain them, withdrew to my own audience chambers with Kantos Khan, Tars Tarkas, Zodar, and Horvastus. Here we discussed the details of our expedition until long after dark. Zodar was positive that Isis could choose both Dejah and Thuvia to serve her for a year. For that length of time at least they will be comparatively safe, he said, and we will at least know where to look for them. In a matter of equipping a fleet to enter Omin, the details were left to Kantos Khan and Zodar. The former agreed to take such vessels as we required to the dock as rapidly as possible, where Zodar would direct their equipment with water propellers. For many years, the Blacks had been in charge of the refitting of captured battleships that they might navigate Omin, and so was familiar with the construction of the propellers, housings, and the auxiliary gearing required. It was estimated that it would require 6 months to complete our preparations in view of the fact that the utmost secrecy must be maintained to keep the project from the ears of Zot Aris. Kantos Khan was confident now that the men's ambitions were fully aroused and that nothing short of the title of Jeddak of Helium would satisfy him. I doubt, he said, if he would even welcome Dejah return, for it would mean another nearer to the throne than he. With you and Carthoris out of the way, there would be little to prevent him from assuming the title of Jeddak, and you may rest assured that so long as he is supreme here, there is no safety for either of you. There is a way, cried Horsfastus, to thwart him effectually and forever. What? I asked. He smiled. I shall whisper here, but some day I shall stand upon the dome of the Temple of Reward and shout it to the cheering multitudes below. What do you mean? Asked Kantos Khan. John Carter, Jeddak of Helium, said Horsfastus in a low voice. The eyes of my companions lighted, and grim smiles of pleasure and anticipation overspread their faces, as each eye turned towards me questioningly, but I shook my head. No, no, my friends, I said, smiling. I thank you, but I cannot be, not yet, at least. When we know that Tardos Morris and Morris Kajak are gone to return no more, if I be here, then I shall join you all to see that the people of Helium are permitted to choose fairly their next Jeddak. Whom they choose may count upon the loyalty of my sword, nor shall I seek the honor from myself. Until then, Tardos Morris is Jeddak of Helium, and Zat Aras is his representative. As you will, John Carter, said Horsfastus. But what was that? He whispered, pointing toward the window overlooking the gardens. The words were scarce out of his mouth ere he had sprung to the balcony without. There he goes, he cried excitedly. The guards, below there, the guards! We were close behind him, and all saw the figure of a man run quickly toward a little piece of sward and disappear in the shrubbery below. He was on the balcony when I first saw him, cried Horsfastus. Quick, let's follow him. Together we ran to the gardens. But even though we scoured the grounds with the entire guard for hours, no trace could be found of the night marauder. What do you make of it, Kantos Khan? I asked Tars Tarkas. A spy sent by Zat Aras, he explained. It was ever his way. He will have something interesting to report to his master then, laughed Horsfastus. I hope he heard only our references to New Jeddak, he said. If he overheard our plans to rescue Deja Thoris, it will mean civil war, for he will attempt to thwart us, and in that I will not be thwarted. There would I turn against Tardos Morris himself, if it were necessary. If it throws all Helium into bloody conflict, I shall go on with these plans to save my princess. Nothing shall stay me now short of death. And should I die, my friends, will you take oath to persecute the search for her and bring her back to the safety of her grandfather's court? Upon the hilt of his sword, each of them swore to do as I had asked. It was agreed that the battleships that were to be remodeled should be ordered to Hastor, another Heliumetic city far to the southwest. Kantos Khan thought that the docks there, in addition to their regular work, would accommodate at least 6 battleships at the time. As he was commander-in-chief of the Navy, it would be a simple matter for him to order the vessels there as they could be handled, and thereafter keep the remodeled fleet in the remote parts of the Empire until we should be ready to assemble it for a dash upon Omine. It was late that night before our conference broke up, but each man there and his particular duties outlined, and the details of the entire plan had been mapped out. Kantos Khan and Zodar were to attend the remodeling of the ships. Tars Tarkas was to get the communication with the Thark and learn the sentiments of the people towards his return from Dor. If favorable, he was to repair immediately to Thark and devote his time to the assembling of a great horde of green warriors, whom it was our plan to send in transports directly to the Valley Dor and the Temple of Isis, while the fleet entered Omine and destroyed the vessels of the Firstborn. Upon Horsfastus devolved the delicate mission of organizing a secret force of fighting men sworn to follow John Carter wherever he might lead. As we estimated, it would require over 1 million men to man 1,000 great battleships he intended to use on Omine, and the transports for the green men, as well as the ships that were to convoy the transports. It was no trifling job that Horsfastus had before him. After they had left, I bid Carthoris good night, for I was very tired, and going to my own apartments, bathed and lay down upon my sleeping silks and furs for the first good night's sleep I had the opportunity to look forward to since I had returned to Barsoom. But even now I was to be disappointed. How long I slept I do not know. When I awoke, suddenly it was to find a half-dozen powerful men upon me, a gag already in my mouth, and a moment later my arms and legs securely bound. So quickly had they worked at such good purpose that I was utterly beyond the power to resist them by the time I was fully awake. Never a word they spoke, and the gag effectually prevented me from speaking. Silently they lifted me and bore me toward the door of my chamber. As they passed the window through which the farther moon was casting its brilliant beams, I saw that each of the party had his face swathed in layers of silk. I could not recognize one of them. When they had come into the corridor with me, they turned toward a secret panel in the wall which led to the passage that terminated to the pits beneath the palace. That any knew of this panel outside of my own household, I was doubtful. Yet the leader of the band did not hesitate a moment. He stepped directly into the panel, touched the concealed button, and as the door swung open, he stood aside while his companions entered with me. Then he closed the panel behind him and followed us. Down through the passageways to the pits we went. The leader rapped upon it with the hilt of his sword. 3 quick, sharp blows, a pause, then 3 more, a pause, then 2. A second later, the wall swung in, and I was pushed within a brilliantly lighted chamber in which sat 3 richly trapped men. One of them turned towards me with a sardonic smile upon his thin, cruel lips. It was Zadaris. Of course it was. God, that guy bothers me. Hey, Beef Burger, what's going on? Playing a horror game on a spaceship. Playing a horror game on a spaceship tonight at 11. That sounds like Dead Space. Unless that's called, like, horror game on a spaceship. Or is it Dead Space? Because Dead Space is... That's horror. Like, that's horrific. Hope you're doing well, Beef. Got 11 ghosty readers in here. Man, it seems he can never get ahead, huh? Every time he has a plan, somebody comes and captures him. I made it! Laura, you made it! Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Ride was awesome. Almost died. I'm awake now. I'm awake now. That's good. I hope you're okay. All right. Let's keep on going. We might, depending on where we end up, might be able to read a couple more chapters because these 2 are pretty short comparatively. Let's see. Awesome. So 16 through 20, and we're on 19 right now. So let's get to 20 and see where we're at, but we might rock another chapter just to get one out of the way that we might have to do toward the end. So, but we'll see. As we read chapter 19, Black Despair. Give me 1 second. Oh, Jay's Mix. Chapter 19, Black Despair. Ah, said Zot Aris, to what kindly circumstance am I indebted for the pleasure of this unexpected visit from the Prince of Helium? While he was speaking, one of my guards had removed the gag from my mouth, but I made no reply to Zot Aris, simply standing there in silence with a level gaze fixed upon the jet of Zodanga. And I doubt not that my expression was colored by the contempt I felt for the man. The eyes of those within the chamber were fixed upon me, and then upon Zararis. Finally, a flush of anger crept slowly over his face. You may go, he said to those who had brought me. And when only his 2 companions and ourselves were left in the chamber, he spoke to me again in a voice of ice, very slowly and deliberately, with many pauses, as though he would choose his words cautiously. John Carter, he said, by the edict of custom, by the law of our religion, and by the verdict of an impartial court, you are condemned to die. The people cannot save you. I alone may accomplish that. You are absolutely in my power to do with as I wish. I may kill you, or I may free you. And should I elect to kill you, none would be wiser. Should you go free in helium for a year in accordance to the conditions of your reprieve, there is little fear that the people would ever insist upon the execution of the sentence posed upon you. You may go free within 2 minutes upon one condition. Tardos Mors will never return to helium. Neither will Mors Kajek nor Deja Thoris. Helium must select a new Jeddak within the year. Zat Aris would be Jeddak of helium. Say that you will espouse my cause. This is the price of your freedom, and I am done. I knew it was within the scope of Zat Aris's cruel heart to destroy me, and if I were dead, I could see little reason to doubt that he might easily become Jeddak of helium. Free, I could prosecute and search for Deja Thoris. Were I dead, my brave comrades might not be able to carry out our plan. So, by refusing to accede to his request, I was quite probable that not only would I not prevent him from becoming Jeddak of helium, but that I would be the means of stealing Deja Thoris's fate, of consigning her, through my refusal, to the horrors of the arena of Isis. For a moment, I was perplexed, but for a moment only. The proud daughter of 1,000 Jeddaks who would choose death to a dishonorable alliance such as this. Nor could John Carter do less for helium than his princess would do. Then I turned to Zat Aris. There can be no alliance, I said, between a traitor of helium and a prince of the house of Tardos Mors. I do not believe, Zat Aris, that the great Jeddak is dead. Zat Aris shrugged his shoulders. It will not be long, John Carter, he said, that your opinions will be of interest even to yourself. So make the best of them while you can. Zat Aris will permit you due time to reflect further upon the monogamous offer he has made to you. Into the silence of darkness of the pits you will enter upon your reflection this night, with the knowledge that should you fail within a reasonable time to agree to the alternative which has been offered you, never shall you emerge from the darkness and the silence again, nor shall you know at what minute the hand will reach out through the darkness and the silence with your keen dagger, and shall rob you of your last chance to win again the warmth and freedom of joyousness of the outer world. Zat Aris clapped his hands as he ceased speaking. The guards returned. Zat Aris waved his hands in my direction. To the pits, he said. That is all. 4 men accompanied me to the chamber, and with the radium hand light to illuminate the way, escorted me through seemingly interminable tunnels ever down beneath the city of helium. At length they halted within a fair-sized chamber. There were rings set in the rocky walls. To them chains were fastened, and at the ends of many of the chains were human skeletons. One of these they kicked aside, and unlocking a huge padlock that they held the chain about what had once been a human ankle, they snapped the iron band about my own leg, and they left me, taking the light with them. Utter darkness prevailed. For a few minutes I could hear the clank of accoutrements, but even this grew fainter and fainter until at last the silence was as complete as the darkness. I was alone with my gruesome companions, with the bones of the dead men whose fate was likely but an index of my own. How long I stood listening in the darkness I do not know, but the silence was unbroken, and at last I sunk to the hard floor of my prison, where, leaning my head against the stony wall, I slept. Must have been several hours later when I awakened to find a young man standing before me. In one hand he bore a light, and in the other a receptacle containing a gruel-like mixture, the common prison fare of Barsoom. Zat Aris sends you greetings, said the young man, and commands me to inform you that, though he is fully advised of the plot to make you Jeddak of helium, he is, however, not inclined to withdraw the offer which he has made to you. To gain your freedom, you have but to request me to advise Zat Aris that you accept the terms of his proposition. I but shook my head. The youth said no more, and after placing the food upon the floor at my side, returned up the corridor, taking the light with him. Twice a day, for many days, this youth came to my cell with food, and ever the same greeting from Zat Aris. For a long time I tried to engage him in conversation upon other matters, but he would not talk, and so, at length, I desisted. For months I sought to advise methods to inform Carthoris of my whereabouts. For months I scraped and scraped upon the single link of the massive chain which held me, hoping eventually to wear it through. that I might follow the youth back through the winding tunnels to a point where I could make a break for the Liberty. I was beside myself with anxiety for knowledge of the progress of the expedition, which was to rescue Dejah Thoris. I felt that Carthoris would not let me let the matter drop, were he free to act, but in so far as I knew, he also might be a prisoner in Tsar Aris's pit. Then Zat Aris's spy had overheard our conversation relative to the selection of the new Jeddak. I knew, and scarcely a half dozen minutes prior, we had discussed the details of the plan to rescue Dejah Thoris. The chances were that that matter too was well known to him. Carthoris, Kantos Khan, Tars Tarkas, Horus Vastas, and Zodar might even now be victims of Zat Aris's assassins or else his prisoners. I determined to make at least one more effort to learn something, and to this end I adopted strategy when next the youth came to my cell. I had noticed that he was a handsome fellow, about the size and age of Carthoris, and I had also noticed that his shabby trappings but illy comported with his dignified and noble bearing. It was with these observations as a bias that I opened my negotiations with him upon his next subsequent visit. "You have been very kind to me during my imprisonment here," I said to him, "and as I feel that I have at best but a very short time to live, I wish, ere it is too late, to furnish substantial testimony of my appreciation for all that you have done to render my imprisonment bearable. Promptly you have brought me food each day, seeing that it is pure and sufficient quantity. Never by word or deed have you attempted to take advantage of my defenseless condition to insult or torture me. You have but uniformly courteous and considerate. It is this more than any other thing which prompts my feeling of gratitude and my desire to give you some slight token of it. In the guard-room of my palace are many fine trappings. Go thou there, and select the harness which most pleases you. It shall be yours. All I ask is that you wear it, that I may know that my wish has been realized. Tell me that you will do it." The boy's eyes had lighted with pleasure as I spoke, and I saw him glance from his rusty trappings to the magnificence of my own. For a moment he stood in thought before he spoke, and for a moment my heart fairly ceased beating. So much for me there was which hung upon the substance of his answer. And I went to the palace of the Prince of Helium with any such demand. They would laugh at me, and into the bargain would more than likely throw me head foremost into the avenue. No, it cannot be, though I thank you for the offer. Why, if Zat Aras even dreamed that I completed such a thing, he would have my heart cut out of me. "There can be no harm in it, my boy," I urged. "By night you may go to my palace with a note from me to Carthoris, my son. You may read the note before you deliver it, and you may know that it contains nothing harmful to Zat Aras. My son will be discreet, and so none of us three need to know. It is very simple, and such a harmless act that it could be condemned by no one." Again he stood silently, deep in thought. "And there is a jeweled short sword, which I took from the body of a northern Jeddak. When you get the harness, see that Carthoris gives you that also. With it and the harness which you may select, there will be no more handsomely encountered warrior in all Zodanga. Bring writing material with you next time you come to my cell, and within a few hours you shall see you garbed in a style befitting your birth and carriage." Still in thought, and without speaking, he turned and left me. I could not guess what his decision might be, and for hours I sat fretting over the outcome of the matter. If he accepted a message to Carthoris, it would mean to me that Carthoris still lived and was free. If the youth returned wearing the harness and the sword, I would know that Carthoris had received my note, and that he knew that I still lived. That the bearer of the note was of Zodangan would be sufficient to explain to Carthoris that I was a prisoner of Zat Aras. It was with feelings of excited expectancy, which I could scarce hide, that I heard the youth's approach upon the occasion of his next regular visit. I did not speak beyond my accustomed greeting of him. As he placed the food upon the floor by my side, he also deposited writing materials at the same time. My heart fairly bounded for joy. I had won my point. For a moment I looked at the materials in feigned surprise, but soon I permitted an expression of dawning comprehension to come into my face, and then, picking them up, I penned a brief order to Carthoris to deliver a Parthak, to Parthak a harness of his selection, and the short sword which I described. That was all, but it meant everything to me and to Carthoris. I laid the note open upon the floor. Parthak picked it up and without a word left me. As nearly as I could estimate, I had at this time been in the pits for 300 days. If anything was to be done to save Dejathoris, it must be done quickly, for were she not already dead, her end must come soon, since those whom Isis choose to live but a single year. The next time I heard the approaching footsteps, I could scarce await to see if Pathark wore the harness and the sword. But judge, if you can, my chagrin and disappointment when I saw that he who bore my food was not Parthak. "What has become of Parthak?" I asked, but the fellow would not answer, and as soon as he deposited my food, turned and retracted his steps to the world above. Days came and went, and still my new jailer continued his duties. Nor would he ever speak a word to me, neither in reply to the simplest question of his own initiative. I could only speculate on the cause of Parthak's removal, but that it was connected in some way directly with the note I had given him was most apparent to me. After all my rejoicing, I was no better off than before, and now I did not even know that Carthoris lived, or if Parthak had wished to raise himself in the estimation of Zat Aris, he would have permitted me to go on precisely as I did, so that he could carry my note to his master, in proof of his own loyalty and devotion. 30 days had passed since I had given the youth a note. 330 days had passed since my incarceration, as closely as I could figure. There remained a bare 30 days ere Dejathoris would be ordered to the arena for the rites of Isis. As the terrible picture forced its way vividly across my imagination, I buried my face in my arms, and only with the greatest difficulty was it that I repressed the tears and welled into my eyes despite my very effort. To think that the beautiful creature torn and rendered by cruel fangs of hideous white apes. It was unthinkable. Such a horrid fact could not be. And yet my reason told me that within 30 days my incomparable princess would be fought over in the arena of the firstborn by those very wild beasts, that her bleeding corpse would be dragged through the dirt and the dust until at the last part of it would be rescued to be served as food upon the tables of the black nobles. I think that I should have gone crazy, but for the sound of my approaching jailer. It distracted my attention from the terrible thought that had been occupying my entire mind. Now a new, grim determination came to me. I would make one superhuman effort to escape, kill my jailer by a ruse, a trust to fate to lead me to the outer world in safety. With the thought came instant action. I threw myself on the floor of my cell, close by the wall, in a strained and distorted posture, as though I were dead, after the struggle or convulsions. When he should stoop over me, I but had to grasp his throat with one hand, strike him a terrific blow with the slack of my chain, which I gripped firmly in my right hand for the purpose. Nearer and nearer came the doomed man. Now I heard him halt before me. There was a mutter of explanation, and then a step as he came to my side. I felt him kneel beside me. My grip tightened upon the chain. He leaned close to me. I must open my eyes to find his throat, grasp it, and strike one mighty final blow, all at the same instant. The thing worked just as I had planned. So brief was the interval between the opening of my eyes and the fall of the chain that I could not check it, though in that minute interval I recognized the face so close to mine was that of my son Carthoris. God, what a cruel and malign fate had worked to such a frightful end! What devious chain of circumstance had led my boy to my side in this one particular minute of our lives when it could strike him down and kill him in ignorance of his identity? A benign, though tardy, providence blurred my vision and my mind as I sank to unconsciousness across the lifeless body of my only son. When I regained consciousness, it was to feel a cool, firm hand pressed upon my forehead, and for an instant I did not open my eyes. I was endeavoring to gather the loose ends of many thoughts and memories which flitted elusively through my tired and overwrought brain. At length came the cruel recollection of that thing that I had done in my last conscious act, and then I dared not open my eyes for fear of what I should see lying beside me. I wondered who it could be who ministered to me. Carthoris must have had a companion whom I had not seen. Well, I must face the inevitable sometime, so why not now? And with a sigh, I opened my eyes. Leaning over me was Carthoris, a great bruise upon his forehead where the chain had struck him, but alive, thank God, alive. There was no one with him. Reaching out my arms, I took my boy within them, and if ever there arose from any planet a fervent prayer of gratitude, it was there beneath the crust of dying Mars as I thanked the eternal mystery for my son's life. The brief instant in which I had seen and recognized Carthoris before the chain fell must have been ample to check the force of the blow. He told me that he had lain unconscious for a time. How long, he didn't know. How came you here at all? I asked, mystified that he had found me without a guide. It was by your wit, and it was by your wit in apprising me of your existence and imprisonment through the youth, Parthak. Until he came for his harness and his sword, we had thought you dead. When I had read your note, I did as you bade. I gave Pothark his choice of harness and the guard-room, and later bringing the jeweled short-sword to him. But the minute that I had fulfilled the promise you evidently had made to him, my obligation to him ceased. Then I commenced to question him. But he would give me no information as to your whereabouts. He was intensely loyal to Zadaris. Finally, I gave him a fair choice between freedom and the pits beneath the palace. The price of freedom to be full information as to where you were imprisoned and directions which would lead us to you. But still he maintained his stubborn partisanship. Despairingly, I had him removed to the pits, where he still is. No threats of torture or death, no bribes, however fabulous, would move him. His only reply to all of our importunities was that wherever Pothark died, it was tomorrow or 1,000 years hence, no man could truly say. A traitor is gone to his deserts. Finally, Zodar, who was a fiend for subtle craftiness, evolved a plan whereby we might worm the information from him, and so I caused Horvastas to be harnessed in the metal of the Zodangan soldier and chained in Pothark's cell beside him. For 15 days the noble Horvastas had languished in the darkness of the pits, but not in vain. Little by little he won the confidence and friendship of the Zodangan until only today Pothark, thinking that he was speaking not only to the countrymen but to a dear friend, revealed that Horvastas the exact cell in which you lay. It took me but a short time to locate the plans of the pits of helium among the official papers. To come to you, though, was a trifle more difficult matter. As you know, while all the pits beneath the city are connected, there are but single entrances from those beneath each section and its neighbor, and at the upper level, just underneath the ground. Of course, these openings, which lead to contiguous pits to those beneath government buildings, are always guarded, and so, while I easily came to the entrance of the pits, beneath the palace where Zat-Aris is occupying, I found there a Zodangan soldier on guard. There I left him when I had gone by, but his soul was no longer with him. And here I am, just in time to be nearly killed by you, he ended, laughing. As he talked, Carthoris had been working at the lock which held my fetters. And now, with the explanation of pleasure, he dropped to the end of the chain to the floor, and I stood once more, freed from those galing irons, and I had chafed in for almost a year. He had brought a long sword and a dagger for me, and thus armed, we set out upon the return journey to my palace. At the point where we left the pits of Zat-Aris, we found the body of the god Carthoris had slain. It had not yet been discovered, and in order to still further delay search and mystery of Jed's people, we carried the body with us for a short distance, hiding it in a tiny cell off the main corridor of the pits beneath the adjoining estate. Some half-hour later, we came to the pits beneath our own palace, and soon thereafter emerged into the audience chamber itself, where we found Kantos Khan, Tars Tarkas, Horvastas, and Zodar awaiting us most impatiently. No time was lost in fruitless recounting of my imprisonments. What I desired to know was how well the plans we laid out nearly a year ago have been carried out. It has taken much longer than we had expected, replied Kantos Khan. The fact that we were compelled to maintain utter secrecy has handicapped us terribly. Zat-Aris' spies are everywhere, yet, to the best of my knowledge, no word of our real plans have reached the villain's ears. Tonight, there lies about the great docks of Hastor a fleet of 1,000 of the mightiest battleships that ever sailed above Barsoom, and each equipped to navigate the air of Olmeen and the waters of Olmeen itself. Upon each battleship there are 5 10-man cruisers and 10 5-man scouts, and 100 one-man scouts. In all, 116,000 craft fitted with both air and water propellers. At Thark lie the transports for the green warriors of Tars Tarkas, 900 large troop ships, and with them their convoys. 7 days ago, all was in readiness, but we waited and hoped that by so doing your rescue might be encompassed in time for you to command the expedition. It is well we waited, my prince. How is it, Tars Tarkas, I asked, that the men of Thark take not the accustomed action against one who returns from the bosom of Ys? They sent a council of 50 chieftains to talk with me here, replied the Thark. We are a just people, and when I had told them the entire story, they were one man in agreeing that their action toward me would be guided by the action of Helium toward John Carter. In the meantime, at their request, I was to resume my throne as Jeddak of Thark, that I might negotiate with neighboring hordes for warriors to compose the land forces of expedition. I have done that which I agreed, 250,000 fighting men, gathered at the ice cap at the north and the ice cap at the south, and representing 1,000 different communities, from 100 wild and warlike hordes, filled with great city of Thark tonight. They are ready to sail for the land of the firstborn when I give the word, and fight there until I bid them to stop. All they ask is the loot they take and the transportation to their own territories when the fighting and looting are over. I am done. And thou, Horst Vastus, I asked, what has been thy success? 1,000,000 veteran fighting men from Helium's thin waterways, men in battleships and transports and the convoys, he replied. Each has sworn to loyalty and secrecy, nor were enough recruited from the single district to cause suspicion. Good, I cried. Each has done his duty, and now, Kantos Khan, may we not repair at once to Hastor to get underway before tomorrow's sun? We should lose no time, Prince, replied Kantos Khan. Already the people of Hastor are questioning the purpose of so great a fleet fully manned with fighting men. I wonder how much that word of it has not before reached the Zat Aris. A cruiser awaits above at your own dock. Let us leave it. A fusillade of shots from the palace gardens just without cut short his further words. Together we rushed to the balcony in time to see a dozen members of my palace guard disappear in the shadows of some distant shrubbery, as in pursuit of the one who fled. Directly beneath us, upon the scarlet sword, a handful of guardsmen were stooping above a still and prostrate form. While we watched, they lifted the figure in their arms, and at my command bore it to audience chamber, where I had been in council. When they stretched the body at our feet, we saw that it was that of a red man, in the prime of his life. His metal was plain, such a common soldiers wear, or those who wish to conceal their identity. Another of Zat Aris' spies, said Horvastus. So it would seem, I replied. And then to the guard you may remove the body. Wait, said Zodar. If you will, Prince, ask that a cloth and a little thoat oil be bought. I nodded to one of the soldiers who left the chamber, returning presently with the things that Zodar had requested. The black kneeled beside the body and, dipping the corner of the cloth in the thoat oil, rubbed for a moment on the dead face before him. Then he turned to me with a smile, pointing to his work. I looked and saw where Zodar had applied the thoat oil. The face was white as mine. And then Zodar seized the black hair of the corpse, and with a sudden retch tore it all away, revealing the hair of a less path beneath it. Guardsmen and nobles pressed close about the silent witness upon the marble floor. Many were in explanations of astonishment and questioning wonder as Zodar's acts confirmed the suspicion which he had held. A Theron, whispered Tars Tarkas. Worse than that, I fear, replied Zodar, but let us see. With that he drew his dagger and cut open a locked pouch which had dangled from the Theron's harness, and from it he brought forth a circlet of gold set with a large gem. It was the mate to that which I had taken from Sotar Throng. He was a holy Theron, said Zodar. Fortunate indeed it is for us that he did not escape. The officer of the guard entered the chamber at this juncture. My prince, he said, I have to report that this fellow companion escaped us. I think that it is with the conveyance of one or more of the men at the gate. I have ordered them all under arrest. Zodar handed him the thoat oil and the cloth. With this you may discover the spy among you, he said. I at once ordered a secret search within the city, for every Martian noble maintains a secret service of his own. And a half hour later, the officers of the guard came again to report. This time, it was to confirm our worst fears. Half the guards at the gate that night had been Therns disguised as red men. "Come," I cried, "we must lose no time. On to Hastor at once. Should the Therns attempt to check us at the southern verge of the ice cap, it may result in the wrecking of all our plans and the total destruction of the expedition." 10 minutes later, we were speeding through the night towards Hastor, prepared to strike the first blow for the preservation of Deja Thoris. Whew! Sean Bowden, good to see you. Nate, Nick, I am disinclined to acquiesce to your request. Means no. That's funny because I heard that too when I was reading. It's good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. We were set to read to chapter 20. We are on chapter 20 right now. 30 minutes left. We'll get to the end and see where we're at. Thank you. Appreciate that. The words are hard. There was a part in the book that basically, that was a book that pretty well said if I had disinclined his request. So, I thought of that exact scene too. Weird how words do that. Sorry, I'm going to try and get better. The words, I might have to make them bigger. But let's read this last chapter. It might be a long one, though, because they're about to... If this chapter ends with them getting there, then we'll stop. Because I have a feeling once they go in, we're not going to want to. Oh boy. Chapter 20, The Air Battle. I am doing well, Sean Bowden. Hope you're doing well as well. 2 hours after leaving my palace at Helium, or about midnight, Kantos Khan, Zodar, and I arrived at Hastor. Carthoris, Tarstarchus, and Horvastus had gone directly to Thark upon another cruiser. The transports were to get underway immediately and move slowly south. The fleet of battleships would overtake them on the morning of the second day. At Hastor, we found all in readiness, and so perfectly had Kantos Khan planned every detail of the campaign that within 10 minutes of our arrival, the first of the fleet had soared aloft from its dock, and thereafter, at the rate of 1 a second, the great ships floated gracefully out into the night to form a long, thin line which stretched for miles towards the south. It was not until after we had entered the cabin of Kantos Khan that I thought to ask the date, for up to now I was not positive how long I had lain in the pits of Zat Aris. When Kantos Khan told me, I realized with a pang of dismay that I had misreckoned the time while I lay in utter darkness in my cell. 365 days had passed. It was too late to save Deja Thoris. The expedition was no longer one of rescue, but of revenge. I did not remind Kantos Khan of the terrible fact that ere we could hope to enter the temple of Isis, the princess of Helium would be no more. And so far as I knew, she might already be dead, for I did not know the exact date on which she first viewed Isis. What now the value of burdening my friends with my added personal sorrows? They had shared quite enough of them with me in the past. Hereafter I would keep my grief to myself, and so I said nothing to any other of the fact that we were too late. The expedition could yet do much if it could but teach the people of Barsoom the facts of the cruel deceptions that had been worked upon them for countless ages, and thus save thousands each year from the horrid fate that awaited them at the conclusion of the voluntary pilgrimage. If it could open to the red men the fair valley door, it would have accomplished much, and in the land of lost souls between the mountains of Otz and the ice barrier were many broad acres that needed no irrigation or bear rich harvests. Here, at the bottom of the dying world, was the only natural productive area upon its surface. Here alone were dews and rains. Here alone was the open sea, Here was the water in plenty, and all this was but a stamping ground of fierce brutes, and from its beauteous and fertile expanse the wicked remnants of two once mighty races barred all other millions of Barsoom. Could I but succeed in once breaking down the barrier of religious superstition which had kept the red races from this El Dorado, It would be a fitting memorial to the immortal, immortal virtues of my princess. I should have again served Barsoom and Dejah Thoris. Martyrdom would not have been in vain. Maritron. Okay, just going to take half a sec. On the morning of the second day, we raised the great fleet of transports and their consorts at the first flood of dawn, and soon were near enough to exchange signals. I may mention here that radio aerograms are seldom, if ever, used in wartime, or for the transmission of secret dispatches at any time. For as often as one nation discovers a new cipher or invents a new instrument for wireless purposes, its neighbors bend every effort until they are able to intercept and translate the messages. So long a time has gone on the practically every possibility of wireless communication has been exhausted, and no nation dares transmit dispatches of importance in this way. Tarstarchus reported all well with the transports. The battleships passed through to take an advanced position, and the combined fleets moved slowly over the ice cap, hugging the surface closely to prevent detection by the Therans whose land we were approaching. Far in advance of all, a thin line of one-man air scouts protected us from surprise, and on either side they flanked us, while a smaller number brought up the rear some 20 miles behind the transports. In this formation we had progressed toward the entrance of Omin for several hours when one of our scouts returned from the front to report that the cone-like summit of the entrance was in sight. At almost the same instant, another scout from the left flank came racing toward the flagship. His very speed bespoke the importance of his information. Kantos Khan and I awaited him upon the little forward deck which corresponds with the bridge of the earthly battleships. Scarcely had his tiny flyer come to a rest upon the broad landing deck of the flagship ere he was bounding up the stairway to the deck where we stood. "A great fleet of battleships, south-southeast, my prince," he cried. "There must be several thousand, and they are bearing down directly upon us." "The Theran spies were not in the palace of John Carter for nothing," said Kantos Khan to me. "Your orders, Prince?" "Dispatch 10 battleships to guard the entrance to Omin, with orders to let no hostile enter or leave the shaft. That will bottle up the great fleet of the firstborn. Form the balance of battleships to a great V with the apex pointing directly south-southeast. Order the transports surrounded by their convoys to follow closely in the wake of the battleships until the point of the V has entered the enemy's line. Then the V must open outward at the apex. The battleships of each leg engage the enemy fiercely and drive him back to form a lane through his line into which the transports with their convoys must race at top speed that they may gain a position above the temples and gardens of the Therans. Here let them land and teach the Holy Theran such a lesson in ferociousness and warfare as they will not forget for countless ages. It had not been my intention to be distracted from the main issue of the campaign, but we must settle this attack with the Therans once and for all, or there will be no peace for us while our fleet remains near Dor, and our chances of ever returning to the outer world will be greatly minimized. Kantos Khan saluted and turned to deliver my instruction to his waiting aides. In an incredible short space of time, the formation of battleships changed in accordance with my commands. The 10 that were to guard the way to Omin were speeding toward their destination, and the troop ships and convoys were closing up in preparation for the spurt through the lane. The order of full speed ahead was given. The fleet sprang through the air like coursing greyhounds, and in another moment the ships of the enemy were in full view. They formed a ragged line as far as the eye could see, and reach in either direction about 3 ships deep. So sudden was our onslaught that they had no time to prepare for it. It was as unexpected as lightning from a clear sky. Every phase of my plan worked splendidly. Our huge ships mowed their way entirely through the line of Theran battlecraft. Then the V opened up, and the broad lane appeared through which the transports leapt toward the temples of the Therans, which could now be plainly seen glistening in the sunlight. By the time the Therans had rallied from the attack, 100,000 green warriors were already pouring through their courts and gardens, while 150,000 others leaned from low swinging transports to direct their almost uncanny marksmanship upon the Theran soldiery that manned the ramparts or attempted to defend the temples. Now the two great fleets closed in a titanic struggle far above the fiendish din of battle in the gorgeous gardens of the Therns. Slowly the two lines of Helium's battleship joined their ends and then commenced encircling within the line of enemy which was so marked with characteristic of Barsoomian naval warfare. Around and around in each other's tracks moved the ships under Kantos Khan until at length they formed nearly a perfect circle. By this time they were moving at high speed so that they were presented a difficult challenge for the enemy. Broadside after broadside they delivered as each vessel came in line with the ships of the Therns. The later attempted to rush in and break up the formation, but it was like stopping a buzzsaw with his bare hands. From my position on the deck beside Kantos Khan, I saw ship after ship of the enemy take the awful, sickening dive which proclaims its total destruction. Slowly we maneuvered our circle of death until we hung above the gardens where our green warriors were engaged. The order was passed down for them to embark. Then they rose slowly to a position within the center of the circle. In the meantime, the Therns' fire had practically ceased. They had had enough of us and were only too glad to let us go on our way in peace. But our escape was not to be encompassed with such ease, for scarcely had we gotten under way once more in the direction of the entrance to Omeen than we saw far north a great black line topping the horizon. It could be nothing other than a fleet of war, whose or whither bound we could not even conjecture. When they had come close enough to make us out at all, Kantos Khan's operator received a radio aerogram, which he immediately handed to my companion. He read the thing and handed it to me. Kantos Khan, it read, surrender in the name of the Jeddak of Helium, for you cannot escape. And it was signed, Zat Aras. The Therns must have caught and translated the message almost as soon as did we, for they immediately renewed hostilities when they realized that we were soon to be set upon by other enemies. Before Zat Aras had approached nearer enough to fire a shot, we were again hotly engaged with the Thern fleet, and as soon as he drew near, he too commenced to pour a terrific fusillade of heavy shots into us. Ship after ship reeled and staggered into uselessness beneath the pitiless fires that we were undergoing. The thing could not last much longer. I ordered the transports to descend again to the gardens of the Therns. Wreak your vengeance to the utmost, was my message to the Green Allies, for by night there will be none left to avenge your wrongs. Presently, I saw the 10 battleships that had been ordered to hold the shaft of Omeen. They were returning at full speed, firing their stern batteries almost continuously. There could be but one explanation. They were being pursued by another hostile fleet. Well, the situation could be no worse. The expedition already was doomed. No man that had embarked upon it would return across that dreary ice cap. How I wished that I might face Zat Aras with my longsword for just an instant before I died. It was he who had caused our failure. As I watched the oncoming 10, I saw their pursuers race swiftly into sight. It was another great fleet. For a moment I could not believe my eyes, but finally I was forced to admit that the most facile calamity had overtaken the expedition. For the fleet I saw was none other than the fleet of the firstborn. That should have been safely bottled up in Omeen. What a series of misfortunes and disasters. What awful fate hovered over me that I should have been so terribly thwarted at every angle of my search for my lost love. Could it be possible that the curse of Isis was upon me? That there was indeed some malign divinity in that hideous carcass? I would not believe it. And throwing back my shoulders, I ran to the deck below to join my men in repelling boarders from one of the Theran craft that had grappled us broadside. In the wild lust of hand-to-hand combat, my old dauntless hopefulness returned, and as Theran after Theran went down beneath my blade, I could almost feel that we should win success in the end, even from apparent failure. My presence among the men so greatly inspired them that they fell upon the luckless wights in such terrible ferocity that within a few moments we had turned the tables upon them, and a second later we swarmed their own decks. I had the satisfaction of seeing their commander take a long leap from the bows of his vessel in token of surrender and defeat. Then I joined Kantos Khan. He had been watching what had taken place on the deck below. and it seemed to have given him a new thought. Immediately he passed an order to one of his officers, and presently the colors of the Prince of Helium broke from every point of the flagship. A great cheer arose from the men of our own ship, a cheer that was taken up by every other vessel in our expedition, as they in turn broke my colors from the upper works. Then Kantos Khan sprang his coup. A signal, legible to every sailor of all fleets engaged in the fierce struggle, was strung aloft upon the flagship. Men of Helium for the Prince of Helium against all his enemies, it read. Presently my colors broke from one of Zat Aris's ships, then from another and another. On some we could see fierce battles waging between Zodangan soldiery and the heliometic crews. But eventually the colors of the Prince of Helium floated above every ship that had followed Zat Aris upon our trail. Only his flagship flew them not. Zat Aris had brought 5,000 ships. The sky was black with the three enormous fleets. It was Helium against the field now, and the fight had settled to countless individual duels. There could be little or no maneuvering of fleets in that crowded, fiery split sky. Zat Aris's flagship was close to my own. I could see the thin features of the man from where I stood. His Zodangan crew was pouring broadside after broadside into us, and we were returning their fire with equal ferocity. Closer and closer came the two vessels, until but a few yards intervened, grapplers and boarders lined in continuous rails of each. We were preparing for the death struggle with our own hated enemy. There was but a yard between the two mighty ships as the first grappling irons were hurled. I rushed to the deck to be with my men as they boarded. Just as the vessels came together with a slight shock, I forced my way through the lines, as was the first to spring to the deck of Zat Aris's ship. After me poured a yelling, cheering, cursing throng of Helium's best fighting men. Nothing could withstand them in the fever of battle lust which enthralled them. Down went the Zodangans before that surging tide of war, and as my men cleared the lower decks, I sprang to the forward deck where stood Zat Aris. "You are my prisoner, Zat Aris," I cried. "Yield, and you shall have quarter." For a moment I could not tell whether he contemplated ascending to my demands or facing me with a drawn sword. For an instant he stood hesitating, and then throwing down his arms, he turned and rushed to the opposite side of the deck. Before I could overtake him, he had sprung to the rail and hurled himself head foremost into the awful depths below. And thus came Zat Aris, Jet of Zodanga, to his end. On and on went the strange battle. The Therans and Blacks had not combined against us. Wherever Theran ship met ship of the firstborn, it was battle royal, and in this I thought I saw our salvation. Wherever messages could be passed between us that could not be intercepted by our enemies, I passed the word that all of our vessels were to withdraw from the fight as rapidly as possible, taking a position to the west and the south of the combatants. I also sent an air scout to the fighting green men to the gardens below to re-embark to the transports to join us. My commanders were further instructed that when engaged with the enemy to draw him as quickly as possible toward the ship of his hereditary foeman, and by carefully maneuvering to force the two to engage, thus leaving himself free to withdraw. This stratagem worked to perfection, and just before the sun went down I had the satisfaction of seeing all that was left of my own mighty fleet gathered nearly 20 miles southwest of the still terrific battle between the Blacks and the Whites. I now transferred Zodar to another battleship and sent with him all the transports of 5,000 battleships directly overhead to the Temple of Issus. Carthoris and I, with Kantos Khan, took the remaining ships and headed for the entrance of Omin. Our plan was now to attempt to make a combined assault upon Issus at dawn of the following day. Tarstarchus, with his green warriors, and Horvastas, with his red men, guided by Zodar, were to land within the garden of Issus or the surrounding plains, while Carthoris, Kantos Khan, and I were to lead our smaller force from the Sea of Omin through the pits beneath the temple, which Carthoris knew so well. Now I learned for the first time the cause of my 10 ships' retreat from the mouth of the shaft. It seemed that when they had come upon the shaft, the navy of the firstborn were already issuing from its mouth. Fully 20 vessels had emerged, and though they had gave battle immediately in an effort to stem the tide that rolled from the black pit, the odds against them were too great, and they were forced to flee. With great caution we approached the shaft under cover of darkness. At a distance of several miles, I caused the fleet to be halted, and from there Carthoris went ahead alone upon the one-man flyer to re- rec- recon. Yes, to recon. In perhaps half an hour, he returned to report that there was no sign of a patrol boat or of the enemy in any form, and so he moved swiftly and noiselessly forward once more towards Omin. In the mouth of the shaft, we stopped again for a moment for all the vessels to reach their previously appointed stations. Then, with the flagship, I dropped quickly into the black depths, while one by one the other vessels followed me in quick succession. We had decided to stake all on the chance that we would be able to reach the temple by the subterranean way, and so we left no guard of vessel at the shaft's mouth, nor would it have profited us in any way to do so, for we did not have sufficient force, all told, to have withstood the vast navy of the firstborn, and they returned to engage us. So the safety of our entrance upon Omin was depending greatly upon the very boldness of it, believing that it would be some little time before the firstborn on guard there would realize that it was an enemy and not their own returning fleet that was entering the vault of the buried sea. And such proved to be the case. In fact, 400 of my fleet and 500 rested safely upon the bosom of Omin before the first shot was fired. The battle was short and hot, but there could have been but one outcome, for the firstborn, in the carelessness of fancied security, had left but a handful of ancient and obsolete hulks to guard their mighty harbor. It was at Carthoris's suggestion that we landed our prisoners under guard upon a couple of larger islands, and then towed the ships of the firstborn to the shaft, where we managed to wedge a number of them secretly in the interior of the great wall. Then we turned on the buoyance rays and the balance of them and let them rise by themselves to the further block the passage of Omin as they came into contact with the vessels already lodged there. We now felt that it would be some time at least before the returning firstborn could reach the surface of Omin, and that we would have ample opportunity to make for the subterranean passages which led to Issus. One of the first steps I took was to hasten personally with a good-sized force to the island of the submarine, which I took without residence in the part of the small guard there. I found the submarine in its pool, and at once placed a strong guard upon it and the island, where I remained to wait the coming of Carthoris and the others. Among the prisoners was Jorstead, commander of the submarine. He recognized me from the 3 trips that I had taken with him during my captivity among the firstborn. "How does it seem," I asked him, "to have the tables turned, to be prisoner of your erstwhile captive?" He smiled, a very grim smile, pregnant with hidden meaning. "It will not be for long, John Carter," he replied. "We have been expecting you, and we are prepared." "So it would appear," I answered, "for you were all ready to become my prisoner with a scarce of a blow struck on either side." "The fleet must have missed you," he said, "but it will return to Omin, and then that will be a very different matter for John Carter." "I do not know that the fleet has missed me as of yet," I said, but of course he did not grasp my meaning and only looked puzzled. "Many prisoners travel to Issus in your grim craft, Jorstead?" I asked. "Very many," he assented. "Might you remember one whom men called Dejah Thoris?" "Well, indeed, for her great beauty, and then, too, for the fact that she was wife to the first mortal that ever escaped from Issus through all the countless ages of her godhood, and the way that Issus remembers her best as the wife of the mother of another who raised her hands against the goddess of life eternal." I shuddered for the fear of cowardly revenge, and I knew Issus might have taken upon the innocent Dejah Thoris for the sacrilege of her son and her husband. "And where is Dejah Thoris now?" I asked, knowing that he would say the words I dreaded most. But yet I loved her, so that I could not refrain from hearing even the worst about her fate, so that it fell from the lips of one who had seen her but recently. It was to me as though it brought her closer to me. "Yesterday the monthly rites of Issus were held," replied Jorstead, "and I saw her then sitting in her accustomed place at the foot of Issus." "What?" I cried. "She is not dead?" "Why, no," replied the black. "It has been a year since she gazed upon the divine glory of the radiant face of—" "No year?" "It has been no year since she gazed upon the divine glory of the radiant face of no year? I interrupted. Why no? Insisted Yerstedt. It cannot have been upward of 370 or 80 days. A great light burst upon me. How stupid I had been. I could scarcely retain an outward exhibition of my great joy. Why, I had forgotten the great difference in the length of Martian and earthly years. The 10 Earth years I had spent on Barsoom had encompassed about 5 years and 96 days of Martian time, whose days are 41 minutes longer than ours, and whose years number 687 days. I am in time! I am in time! The words surged through my brain again and again, until at last I must have voiced them audibly, for Yerstedt shook his head. In time to save your princess? He asked, and then, without waiting for my reply, no, John Carter, Isis will not give up your own. Will not give up her own. She knows that you are coming, and ere ever a vandal foot is set within the precincts of the Temple of Isis, if such a calamity should befall, Dejah Thoris will be put away forever from the last faint hope of rescue. What mean you, that she will be killed merely to thwart me? I asked. Not that, other than as a last resort, he replied. Hast ever heard of the Temple of the Sun? It is there that they will put her. It lies far within the inner court of the Temple of Isis, a little temple that raises a thin spire far above the spires of minarets in the great temple that surround it. Beneath it, in the ground, there lies the main body of the temple, consisting of the 687 circular chambers, one below another. To each chamber, a single corridor leads through a solid rock from the pits of Isis. As the entire Temple of the Sun revolves once with each revolution of Barsoom about the Sun, but once each year, does not the entrance to each separate chamber come opposite the mouth of the corridor, which forms its only link to the world without? Here Isis puts those who displease her, but whom she does not care to execute forthwith, or to punish a noble of the firstborn, she may cause him to be placed within the chamber of the Temple of the Sun for a year. Oftentimes she imprisons the executioner with the condemned, that death may come in certain horrible form upon a given day, or again, but enough food is deposited in the chamber to sustain life, but a number of days that Isis has allotted for mental anguish. Thus will Dejah Thoris die, and her fate will be sealed by the first alien foot that crosses the threshold of Isis. So I was to be thwarted in the end, although I had performed the miraculous and come within a few short moments of my divine princess, yet was I as far from her as when I stood upon the banks of the Hudson 48 million miles away. Golly. Hey, Rafa. It's good to see you. Whew. Well, that was intense. And that was a longer chapter. Hey, Nate, sending a membership. Appreciate you, son. Went to Maddie, Evie's foster mom. Appreciate you. That was pretty good. Sorry, I hope that was all comprehensible. I was going real fast. I think I got excited while I was reading. So I'm sorry, y'all. But I'm hoping y'all liked it. I should probably learn to be on live chat. So let me see here. All right, let's do this. Oh. Well, that's... All right, well... Now and again, it was good. Appreciate that. Then painting a card struck me. Awesome. Kitty-O, appreciate the raid earlier, fam. It was on my other stream, but we are still going to read tonight. But I really appreciate that, and I hope Kitty-O had an amazing birthday. Really appreciate you, fam. So here's where we're at, and I'm gonna have to do this just because I want your guys' opinion. Because right now, I didn't realize that those two chapters um, are the only two we have left. So we have only two chapters left in this book. I'm willing to bear down and finish it tonight, just so that we can start the next book next week, or we can save those two chapters for next week and we can have a little one. So, totally up to y'all. While you guys vote, I'll go ahead and leave it open for a couple minutes because I know there's only like 12 of you in here. So, deserved 100%. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Kiddio. I was lurking in the birthday stream there. I think that my chats might have gotten lost in the sauce, but certainly always, I never miss a Kiddio stream, just so you know. I liked Uncle Kev's, kept me busy one day, and I was rushed back to the hospital. Oh, please keep me posted. Please keep me posted. Oh no, Frank, she'll be okay indeed. Oh no, is it going to end in a tie? The other blue and white. That's the one. I think it's going to end in a tie. If it ends in a tie, Nate's going to decide. Problems with her breathing. Well, you know, my heart is with you. Let me know if there's anything that I can do. Abstaining because I have no idea what's going on. I'm just listening to your melodic voice lull me to sleep. No worries at all. We're right at the end of the book, so. But essentially, it's John Carter of Mars. They did make a Disney movie about it, but I think that's what kind of took away its grit. Tiebreaker to break the tie. Tie goes to VP. Yes, the tie goes to the vice president. That is true. All right, let's get this orange and green one so I can say it's done. It's not tied anymore. It's not tied anymore. Only got 7 votes in. And on book 17 or 19 of New Jedi Order series, so I'm not really paying attention to any other stories until I'm done with it. That makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Well, I was excited to finish it because I know 2 chapters in a stream is going to be like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, so. But I reckon it doesn't have to be a 2-hour stream every time. So we can finish it up next time. Thank you, Lovejoy. Malcolm on to wife, gonna put Layla for me. I know I'll be okay. Yeah, certainly. Got my prayers going for her. You guys are always in my thoughts and really appreciate you hanging out. Hope I was able to help keep you company a little bit. All right. Yeah, I reckon that's true. I just don't like to finish one book and start a new book in the same stream is my biggest thing. So if we finish this next week, it will only be these 2 chapters, and then we will probably not read or start another book unless I guess I can start a new stream and then start the new book. But yeah, I really look forward to them too. Yep, certainly do. Man, I'm going to have to wait a week to find out what happens. All right, well, y'all have spoken. Appreciate y'all for hanging out with me, not just once, but twice today. Reckon I can utilize this time back to start some of those arts. No. I've got no more room for Lego. And I haven't looked at any models lately. But that's all right. Not the first time that we've done it. We've had short reading streams before. Is there anybody on? Who else are you guys watching? I mean, the kitten been chilling here listening to you as she sleeps on my shoulder. Aw. Well, it's less effective ability, Rafa. It's more I've got nowhere to put it. Like once they're built, those last 4 3D models, I actually had to put away a lot of my Star Wars heads to make them fit. So yeah, next time I'm reading in my other chair, you can actually see I've got no more of the Star Wars heads behind me. But that's all right, because I can always pack up and can always pack them up and like swap them out. So cooking dinner, let's go. What are you having for dinner? Oh yeah, dirt. That's funny. They're still around. They're just not behind me. Mac and cheese and hot dogs. Let's go. That's definitely a really oh no. What happened? Okay. All right, we're good. Crisis averted. And we start over. Good. All right. Mac and cheese and hot dogs. Same Sean, but I got burgers thrown in there as well. Mac, cheese, hot dogs, and burgers. Holy moly. Must have been a barbecue. Channel, and she said, I love the way he pronounces your name. Raphilosophy. Don't even know where that came from. It was. All right. Well, as we're here. Okay. Can we do something wild and go right, right. Come on. There we go. Now it's just a 3x3 again. Hang on a minute. What's going on here? Killing me, Smalls. I'm in the zone now, y'all. You're just gonna have to bear with me. We're in the home stretch. Alright. And that, my ghost fan, is a 6x6. Currently committed, so I told her, come on up, but I told her what I spent my time doing. Strawberry shortcake afterwards, but they're taking care of her, much love. Keeping Nana overnight, see how she goes, heading home to pack overnight bag for Nana. Excellent, appreciate the update. Alright. Alright, y'all have spoken. Y'all are done tonight. Appreciate that, Nate. One day, and I have a 4x4 for you whenever you're ready. Got my old one that you can have. Let me take a peruse, and we'll see where we can send us. Well, I know what Rafa's always on about. Daniel Domino. Is he still alive? Or is that later? No, he should still be live. Is that live? Is he live? I wanted to raid this guy since you brought him up. So let me know. Oh, it's going to be so hard not to finish that. Appreciate you guys so much for everything. Hanging out. Pretty sure he's still painting. Excellent. Take a new poll. No, it's been too long. Too long past. I'm going to get some dinner and chill out for the night. The poll is done. The people have spoken. I have thought about doing bi-weekly Discord streams where I get to, where I could read anything. So I could read any book in any domain. Doesn't have to be the public domain. So I'm thinking about those. Courtesy of Heavy D, he's the one that put it in my head. So I thought it would always be cool. I've always wanted to read the Harry Potter books out loud. So yeah, we'll see if we can get that done. The only thing would have to be that, yeah, I'm just going to have to figure out a way to do it. So I could read Narnia too. Absolutely. That's how it all started, actually. Um, he's not in my stream. Ernie used to love coming and passing out on Monday. So I'll pop in, I'll say hello, but I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Appreciate you hanging out with me. And longer than anybody should have to on both streams. It was a lot of fun. But I'm going to get some dinner and then probably sit down and start planning out some art. So, but appreciate y'all. Let me know if there's anything that you need. And as always, if I got it, you got it. I love you too, son. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Appreciate you being here for the read. And always remember, y'all, go out and get everything that you set out to get. And don't let anything stop you. But it takes $0 to be a good person. So always do it through peace, love, and Pokemon. Thank you all for believing in ghosts. Hey, wait, what? Thursday, probably streaming after working. Peace, love, and Pokemon. Appreciate you, Nick Nick. Afternoonish, I'll be working until 6, and then I'll be streaming 30 minutes later. So yeah, I'll be working 9 to 6. At least I think. And hopefully only 9 to 6. Night, y'all. Yes, have a beautiful rest of your night. Condensing my storage units, and then I was going to drop off those jumbos to you on the way home. Oh, yeah, I'll be home all day for sure. Yeah, I'll be home and able to run down whenever. So I'll make it work. But yeah, really appreciate that. And yeah, let's go say hi to Daniel, everybody. Have a beautiful rest of your night. Thank you all so much for being here. Peace out, y'all. Yes, please do. Thank you.